Shabbat Shalom. As Rabbi Heath mentioned, this week we read the Torah portion, Vayakhel, in which the entire community comes together to build the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary that will be carried with the Israelites as they wander in the desert over the next many years. Every member of the community contributes in some way, whether through donations, their skill set. Artisans, spinners of wool, makers of cloth, construction workers, everybody. They all join in. No one sits idly by and lets the work happen without, in some way, participating. It is a lesson in the power of community, in building something strong, beautiful, and lasting. In his book, Waking Up, Sam Harris, creator of the Making Sense podcast, discusses the possibility of spirituality without religion, faith tradition, or God. Harris, as you may know, is a confirmed atheist who believes that religion and/or faith traditions are antithetical to peaceful coexistence in this world. In other words, Harris's hypothesis is that the main goal of religion is some experience of transcendence, but that religion fosters divisions among people. Harris further states that if you have one of these spiritual experiences of transcendence and at oneness, you will naturally go out into the world and behave well toward other people. I disagree. It's certainly not very practical. Wait for your spiritual moment, and then you will understand what to do next. Judaism is nothing if not practical. Undoubtedly, we know that many horrific crimes have been committed in the name of religion throughout the millennia. But I would argue that this is a perversion, not a function of religion. I am not here tonight to argue either for or against the existence of God. It is certainly true that it is possible to be an atheist and to be a good Jew. That is one of the things that makes Judaism a little different from many other religions or faith traditions. There is, however, so much more to Judaism than spiritual experience. While Harris seems to feel that the best road is one taken with one's self, I want to talk about gathering and the importance of coming together as a community. Why do we gather for worship? Why, on Yom Kippur, for example, do we confess our sins together? Do we learn something important by acting together instead of acting alone? What is the power of sacred community and relationship? And are we setting some kind of example for our lives by acting in relationship this evening, or any Shabbat for that matter? In his book, Harris talks about many moments in his life during which he was moved spiritually by a particular experience. He talks about a walk in Jesus' footsteps on the shore of the Galilee, about having a similar moment sitting at his desk, and once while even having his teeth cleaned. By the way, I am looking for that dental hygienist, and when I find them, I will let you know in the builder. Harris, who wonders which comes first, this feeling of transcendence or the belief in God, decides that these moments come when he slows down, filters out distractions, and focuses on the moment at hand. This discovery of Harris's is in keeping with many meditation practices in many different traditions throughout the world. Harris thus concludes that we do not need organized religion to find spirituality in our lives. We can find spirituality in nature, at a concert, during meditation, or even during exercise. On this particular point, I agree. Harris seems to be saying, however, that the whole of organized religious machinery is built to attain these moments of transcendence, which world religions' faith traditions call, mistakenly in Harris's view, communion with God. Certainly, this is not true of Judaism, which places a high value on intrapersonal relationship and community in particular. If our religion, faith tradition, peoplehood is only about finding transcendence, then we could all be alone on a mountaintop somewhere instead of here in this room, together with those streaming the service online. After all, even Reb Nachman of Bratslav, one of the greatest Jewish mystics of all time, talks about finding transcendence and God in nature. But what about the road of the agnostic and the atheist? Here's a joke, or story really, that you may know or may have heard me tell. This was one of my father's favorites. Shlomo in the shtetl decides one day that he's going to be an atheist. So he goes to his Rebbe and says he is now an atheist. The Rebbe suggests that Shlomo seek out Shmuel in the next shtetl over. Shmuel is a known atheist, and he will be able to help Shlomo get started on his new path. The very next morning, Shlomo leaves to go see Shmuel. The walk is long, and toward the end of the day, a very tired Shlomo arrives at Shmuel's shtetl. He asks the first passerby he sees, "Excuse me, do you know where I can find Shmuel the atheist?" The person replies, "You will find Shmuel in the Beit HaMidrash, the house of study." Shlomo is somewhat surprised by this answer, but he heads toward the center of town, where he knows that he will find the synagogue and the Beit HaMidrash. Once there, he asks the shamash, "Where can I find Shmuel the atheist?" "Studying Talmud," the shamash answers. Shlomo is now getting to be a little impatient and annoyed, but he follows the sounds of voices to a room where a large gathering is winding up their study for the day. "Which one of you is Shmuel the atheist?" he asks. "Oh," says someone in the group, "Shmuel studies with the rabbi." Shlomo is now thoroughly annoyed, and he's beginning to wonder if he's been sent on a wild goose chase. In this state of mind, he finds the rabbi's study and throws open the door to find the rabbi and Shmuel engaged in deep conversation. Unable to contain himself any longer, Shlomo exclaims, "I decided I wanted to be an atheist. I was told to come to the shtetl to talk to you because you are an atheist. Yet when I arrive here, I'm told that you're in the Beit HaMidrash. Then I'm told that you're studying Talmud. Then I'm told that you study Talmud with the rabbi. Explain yourself." The room is suddenly silent. Shmuel takes a long look at Shlomo and asks, "Do you know Talmud?" "No," Shlomo answers. "Well, do you know some Mishnah?" "No," he answers again. "Well, do you at least know some Torah?" "Maybe a little," says Shlomo. Shmuel says, "Do you really think you know enough to be an atheist?" "Come, let us study together." Come, let us study together. Why is Shmuel still part of a religious, faith-based community? In fact, so much a part that he is welcomed into the rabbi's study on a regular basis. What is Sam Harris failing to understand? The early 20th century religious philosopher Martin Buber conceived and developed the idea of the I-thou relationship. Buber puts this relationship at the center of his understanding of Judaism. Many people think of Buber's I-thou as a sort of peak spiritual experience, but this is a misunderstanding of Buber's intent. You see, before he came to the I-thou relationship, Buber was very drawn to Hasidic mysticism and transcendent experiences. Then something happened that changed his life. In the autumn of 1914, a young man came to see Buber. Buber had spent the morning in mystical exaltation. Still, in Buber's own words, warmed by his intimate communion with God, Buber spoke with the young man in a friendly way. After the man left, however, Buber realized that he had not actively listened to the man at all. The young man had serious questions that he needed help articulating, and Buber had been so wrapped up in his own afterglow that he had not really been present for the person before him. Moreover, Buber realized that his self-focus and warm feelings actually inhibited their interchange. Sometime later, Buber learned that the young man had died in the war. Buber thus came to the conclusion that mysticism does not show us reality. Rather, he decided it can hide reality from us. It is the people who confront us every day, moment by moment, making their demands on us, that are far more significant than any subjective occurrence might be. Thus, as Buber goes on to develop his philosophy of true meeting, he shifts the balance from mysticism and spirituality to our day-to-day relationships. Unlike many other religions' faith traditions, Judaism is a tradition of text and law that governs the relationships between people. Also, unlike many other religions' faith traditions, Judaism does not require faith and belief in the classic senses of those words. Yes, we are supposed to believe that God is one. What that means, however, has never been clearly defined. Does it mean that God is an idea of oneness? Idea with a capital I. Does it mean, as the Jewish philosopher and founder of reconstructing Judaism, Mordechai Kaplan, said, that God is a process, the sum total of the powers of the universe that make for our eventual salvation? Does it mean that God is a being of infinite power and wisdom that commands us and sits in judgment of us? Saying that God is one does not tell us which, if any, of these descriptions is the right one. Like so much in Judaism, we are left with as many questions as answers. But what we do have is legislation. Our ancestors were reluctant to find what we have to believe, but they were not at all shy about telling us how to behave. It is hard to legislate belief, but you can legislate action and behavior. Even if someday, as the physicist Stephen Hawking of blessed memory proclaimed, we finally figure out what started the universe, and that something turns out not to be God, will that make a difference in how we need to behave to get along? In the end, isn't it all about how we treat each other, how we behave toward the person sitting next to us on the plane, in the classroom, at the dinner table, in your Facebook or X feed? So you see, Mr. Harris completely missed the point of organized religion. Our religion, faith tradition, peoplehood, welcomes spirituality. Of course it does, and our lives would be poorer without it. But why do we need a minion to pray so many of our important prayers, when we could just as easily find those transcendent moments without being anywhere near the synagogue? Because minyan and the synagogue bring us into relationship. Because Judaism teaches us how to behave in relationship. Because community starts with understanding that our relationships are sacred. In other words, friends, our tradition teaches us that the responsibility for our family, our friendships, our synagogue community, our local community, our world community lie with us. Whatever our spiritual understanding, Judaism insists that we behave with thoughtfulness and that we recognize the sacred nature of human relationship. May all of our relationships be sacred, and may we always act with compassion, understanding, and love.